In 2015, when I was in Ottawa, Canada, I met Mr. Yunai. He just stepped down from ITLOS as the president. I directly asked him, you are, as a Japanese background of ITLOS president, you should avoid to nominate the judges or arbitrators to deal with this case or arbitration that have been initiated against China. I don't think the judges nominated by you will deal this case impartially, objectively. But unfortunately, he didn't answer my question. So that's my answer to your questions. To your question about why China didn't appear the cause, you mentioned the customary international law. But in my opinion, Chinese official stance to the arbitration and arbitration ruling is three no's: no acceptance, no participation, and no recognition. Why? The main reasons are: number one, from Chinese perspective, the tribunal has no jurisdiction over the Philippine submission concerning South China Sea historical rights and 9-line and 9-line and related historical rights, because China's, maritime entitles in South China Sea inextricably linked to two questions. One is territorial sovereignty over land and the maritime interests in the South China Sea. And also, the tribunal wrongly denied the integrity of South China Sea, Nalantad Island, and also erroneously concluded that Taiping Island, the largest naturally formed island, Taiping Island or Turaba, and the South China Island, and another South China Islands are not eligible for claim EEZ and the container shelf. So it's wrong. And also the critical conclusion of the tribunal says the UNCLOS leaves no space for historical rights is highly questionable. Why? Because the historical rights can and will coexist along with UNCLOS. And another case has already confirmed this. So that's the main reason.
So my response to the claim of China that the tribunal was constituted illegally because it had it had no jurisdiction. China basically claims that it did not give its consent to the arbitration, and consent is required before the arbitral tribunal can acquire jurisdiction. And second, the tribunal has no jurisdiction because it's a territorial dispute. Now, on the first, when you ratify UNCLOS, you give your consent in advance to any future arbitration under UNCLOS regarding the application or interpretation of UNCLOS. It's there. If there is a dispute, one party to the dispute can request that the dispute be submitted under the compulsory settlement dispute mechanism of UNCLOS. So that's what we did. Because China gave its consent in advance to any future arbitration. Just like in the Pact of Bogota in Latin America. All countries signed the Pact of Bogota, and they said if there is any territorial, maritime, or any kind of dispute, we agree to submit it to compulsory arbitration in advance in case of a future dispute. That's allowed. That is giving your consent in advance. So there was consent. The second, China said that the tribunal has no jurisdiction. But there is a provision in the UNCLOS. In case the jurisdiction of the tribunal is questioned, the tribunal itself shall decide whether it has jurisdiction. And in this case, the arbitral tribunal ruled it has jurisdiction. So it's all covered. Now, China did not participate physically, but they are bound because they gave their consent in advance. But China, even if it did not appear, it submitted a position paper. it submitted it to the tribunal. This is our position paper. And in that position paper, China said, Philippine territory is defined in 3 treaties: the 1898 Treaty of Paris, the 1900 Treaty of Washington, and the 1930 Treaty with the British demarcating our boundary in southern Philippines. So China said, those are the 3 treaties that define Philippine territory. We agree with China. In fact, it's in our constitution. China even quoted our constitution of 1935. Philippine territory is defined in 3 treaties. We completely agree with China that Philippine territory is defined in 3 treaties. But where is the difference? The second Treaty of Washington. Because in the Treaty of Paris of 1898, Spain ceded to the U.S. only the islands within the treaty lines. That's very clear. We admit that. But when the Americans came here, they found out that there were many islands belonging to the Philippine archipelago lying outside the lines of the Treaty of Paris. So they again talked to the Spaniards. They said, hey, there are many other islands outside the treaty lines. They negotiated and they signed the second treaty, the Treaty of Washington. And it says, there's only one article in the Treaty of Washington. There's one of the shortest treaties in the world. It says, Spain also cedes to the U.S. any and all island belonging to the Philippine archipelago lying outside the lines of the Treaty of Paris. Very clear. The second treaty clarified that all other islands belonging to the Philippine archipelago lying outside the lines were also ceded. China admits that Philippine territory is governed by the Treaty of Washington also. They're bound by that admission. And where do we find these islands belonging to the Philippine archipelago lying outside the line? You go to the 3 official maps of Philippine territory during the Spanish regime. 1734 Pedro Murillo Velarde map, you see there Panacot. Panacot is Bao de Masinloc, which is also called Scarborough Shoal. In the second official map of Philippine territory during the Spanish regime, you have the 1808 map. It's there, Bajo de Masinloc or Scarborough Shoal. And also, the rest of the Spratlys are there. The last official map of Philippine territory during the Spanish regime, the 1875 Carta General del Archipelago Filipino, it's there also. Scarborough Shoal and the entire Spratlys with depth soundings with names of specific features that are above water at high tide. And when the Americans came here, the map that they brought with them was totally wrong. They discarded that map and they adopted the 1875 Carta General of Spain. Exactly the same map. They put their War Department Office, 1901, 1902, 1899, 1900 map, 4 editions. So if you visited the Philippine Government Office in Manila in the 1910, 1920, 1930, you will see this map, the 1875 Carta General, as the map of Philippine territory, and you will see there's Scarborough Shoal with depth soundings, and then entire Spratlys are there with depth soundings. And in the very famous international case between Netherlands and the U.S. on Islas Palmas, they disputed who has sovereignty over Islas Palmas. That's an island off the coast of, in the southern tip of Mindanao. The first arbitration on territorial dispute in Asia was between the U.S. and Netherlands over an island in Mindanao. And the Americans, to prove that Islas Palmas belongs to the Philippines, submitted the 1875 Carta General. They said, this is the official map of Philippine territory during the Spanish regime and during the American regime. And that is why this map is very important, because it is the map that tells us Scarborough Shoal and the Spratlys have been part of Philippine territory since 1734. Thank you.
Thank you.
Like that line, we call it the dashed line or U-shaped line. The background was soon after Japan surrendered, because from 1939 to 1945, the South China Sea Islands was occupied illegally by Japan. Before that, was occupied by France. So Japan surrounded. Then Chinese government ROC, according to Cairo Declaration and the post-proclamation, recovered the South China Sea Islands. And then the first draft map was appeared soon after China recovered the South China Islands in 1947, and officially published the dashed line, 11 dashed line, in 1948. The new China, the founding of the People's Republic of China, inherited the dashed line. So what is the meaning of the 9 dashed line, in my opinion? If we look at the statement published by Chinese government soon after the July 12, 2016, the arbitration ruling was issued. It says, the statement says, China has sovereignty over Dongsha, Xisha, Zhongsha, and Nansha Islands. And those islands have internal waters, territorial sea, contiguous zone in the continental shelf. And China enjoys historical rights in the South China Sea. So that should be viewed as the 9-line meaning. Historical rights, another colleague mentioned historical rights. The arbitration ruling denied China's historical rights in South China Sea. It says, if we look at the ruling, it says China, based on historical rights, asked for or claiming for natural resources falling within that line has no legal basis. But I would say, we look at the international practice, the case between Eritrea and Yemen in 1998, and the case between Tunisia and Libya in 1982. Historical rights is an ancient right that stems from the coastal states' long history, practical or physical practice in relevant maritime areas. No matter you made an official declaration or formal notification, the historical rights is there. So China's historical rights in the South China Sea was there, is there, and will be there, no matter China claims or not.